TJ Newman is a former flight attendant and former co-worker of mine who left the skies to write her first novel, Falling, which became a publishing sensation and debuted at #2 on the New York Times bestseller list. And this time she's done it again, and she's debuting her second novel, Drowning, The Rescue of Flight 1421. It's being released on May 30th. TJ, we're so happy to finally have you here on the Jet Set.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. And it's so great to be back with a former crewmate of mine. This is so fun.
It is so fun. It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long, but I've been following your success all the way through. And to quote Nikki, I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
We are, but before we talk about your new book, Bobby said that you guys used to be colleagues, but you're both not flying now. And I have to know, do you miss it?
I do. I mean, I think it speaks for both of us that even though neither of us are flying anymore, we're still, industry adjacent. We're still working in aviation. It's an incredible industry. And the people that you work with, as Bobby and I can attest to, they're the best. I miss them most of all, the crew members that I worked with. And when you read my books, I think that comes through, that it really is a family up there. It's not just a coworker, you become family.
That's true. I mean, when you're flying around the country or the world with the same 3 or 4 people for such a long period of time, you become family. But it's true. What I miss most is the people that I flew with. And I mean, luckily, just keeping in touch with you and Brad that's in our ear, who also flew with us, who now works with us here. So like you always stay connected. Now, okay, TJ, your first book was an instant success. And like the first, the second isn't even out yet and is already garnering rave reviews. Tell us about the second novel and the process that went into writing Drowning.
Yes. Drowning, The Rescue of Flight 1421 tells the story of a flight from Honolulu to San Francisco that crashes into the ocean 6 minutes after takeoff. The passengers immediately evacuate until an explosion forces them to close the doors. But it's too late. The plane floods and sinks with 12 people trapped inside, including an 11-year-old daughter and her father. Now, their only chance of survival is if an elite rescue team on the surface, led by her mother and his soon-to-be ex-wife, can figure out a way to dive down to the bottom of the ocean and rescue them.
It keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time you're reading it. And while you were giving that description, Nikki literally got goosebumps all over her arms. What kind of research went into writing this novel? I mean, I read in the acknowledgments that you didn't just put pen to paper. You actually did some background research into this.
I did a lot of research for this. Yeah, I got scuba certified as well. I spent a tremendous amount of time in the bathtub and in the pool, just surrounded by water, figuring out how to make this scenario happen. As you know, as flight attendants, we go through a lot of training on what's called a ditching. That's the aviation technical term for an emergency landing on water, is a ditching. So we are extensively trained on what to do in the unlikely event of a ditch. But I clearly had to do a little bit more research when the plane goes underwater with people trapped inside, which is definitely not a scenario that we go through in training. Some of our former coworkers, pilot friends of ours, I'm still very close friends with. I call them my phone pilot friends. I would call them up and say, okay, so how do I make this happen if I want this to be the end result? And then I would say, well, if this happens, then that would happen. They'd say, no, actually, that. So we would just go back and forth until I kind of reverse engineered how to figure out how to get a plane with people trapped inside, teetering on the edge of an ocean shelf at the bottom of the ocean. Like I said, I got scuba certified. I talked to engineers, and I just basically talked to people who knew things that I knew nothing about.
Well, you did such an amazing job of writing in aviation terms and explaining them to the readers who, like me, may have never worked in the airline industry before. Did you find that process hard, translating the terms, or do you just view it as part of the process?
It's actually something that I really enjoy doing from the standpoint of I'm not a pilot. I don't actually fly aircraft. So that translation is something I've had to do the whole time I've been writing, and including when I was flying. A lot of this started too because I was just curious. I'm fascinated by aviation and the role that pilots play. And so I would ask questions constantly, and they would explain it and I would basically translate to myself. I would say, okay, so you're saying that this and this and this, and they would say, yeah, exactly. So I kind of did the translating first for myself, and now it's just doing that extra added layer to someone who isn't in the industry at all.
And for those of us that worked with you in the past, I love reading the books and finding like the little Easter eggs and nuggets from our former employer throughout the book. That definitely makes me just, laugh a little bit here and there when I see those acronyms that no one else uses but us, but then you translate them.
It's been really fun to let the general public sort of, behind the curtain, to let them see sort of the backstage look at what it's like to be a flight attendant. Because oftentimes the way that we're portrayed in the media is not the most flattering to what we really are, which is that we are safety and security professionals who also, like you alluded to earlier, who spend all our days on the road together having fun. The line between home and away gets kind of blurred, and coworker and friend also gets kind of blurred. So it's been really fun to let the general public see this is what we talk about in the galley. This is what it's like, when we get on the plane and go to work. And yes, there's some little Easter eggs for us.
I love them.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say your first 2 novels were a huge success. What's the chances you're working on a third?
I'm deep into working on my third. It's you don't work in an industry like aviation and have as big a imagination as I do and only come up with 2 ideas. So I'm deep into work on my third book.
We are
well,
so
good.
excited.
I'm so excited. I'm so happy for all of your success, and what comes of these 2 books, maybe in movie form in the future. Maybe that would be really amazing. I'm so happy you finally came on the Jet Set, and I'm so happy to finally see you again.
Drowning by TJ Newman is available now for pre-sale, but it'll be released on May 30th. But you can get your copy at thejetset.com. TJ, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both. It was so great to be on and great to see you, Bobby.
What's gonna happen? I have to know.